Hello, everyone. My name is Tagani Raditapule. I work for Alzheimer's SA in our Free State office. Today, the 15th of June, 2021 is World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. World Elder Abuse Awareness Day was launched on the 15th of June in 2006 by the International Network of Prevention of Elder Abuse and the World Health Organization. Then the United Nations General Assembly designated that date, 15th of June, as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day in its resolution 66/127. That is why now, since then, 2006, every year, 15th of June is the day that the whole world raises its voice against elder abuse. A few facts about elder abuse. Elder abuse happens mostly where the elderly live, at home, in retirement homes, and in institutions and old age homes where they are taken care of. 90% of elder abuse is perpetrated by a family member, either deliberately or not deliberately. 1 out of 10 older adults experience some form of abuse. Unfortunately, many incidences of elder abuse go unreported. Only perhaps 1 in 6 are reported, might be even less. And usually the trigger is money and assets. Now let's talk about the forms of abuse. I know most of us do know what abuse is, but we need to continually talk about it. Physical abuse. It's the non-accidental use of force against a person living with dementia, causing physical pain or injury, including intentional inappropriate use of medication. And then signs could be unexplained signs of injury, such as bruises or scars, especially if they appear symmetrically on 2 sides of the body. Broken bones, sprains or dislocations, report of drug overdose or apparent failure to take medication regularly, which does harm the physical body, broken eyeglasses or frames, signs of being restrained, such as marks on wrists. And you know, physical abuse is about biting, hitting, pushing, slapping. And then the next abuse is emotional abuse, which ranges from verbal or non-verbal acts, threats of abuse, harassment, and intimidation of your person living with dementia. Verbal forms of elder abuse include intimidation through yelling or threats, humiliation and ridicule, habitual blaming or scapegoating. Non-verbal psychology elder abuse can take the form of ignoring the elderly person, isolating an elder from friends or activities, terrorizing or menacing the elder person, and in addition to the general signs above, indications of emotional elder abuse include threatening, belittling, or controlling caregiver behavior. Behavior displayed by the elder, such as rocking, sucking, or mumbling to oneself, is also a good sign that abuse could be happening. Financial exploitation involves unauthorized and misuse of the funds and property of the person living with dementia. This involves unauthorized use of an elderly person's funds or property, either by a caregiver, a family member, or an outside scam artist. An unscrupulous caregiver might misuse an elder person's checks, credit cards or accounts, steal cash or household goods, forge the elder's signature, and engage in identity theft. Sexual abuse. Sexual abuse includes sexual contact of any kind with an elderly person without the elder's consent, or an elderly person who is unable to understand. Sexual abuse activities should be things such as showing an elderly person pornographic material, forcing the person to watch sex acts, forcing the elder to undress in front of you. And signs could be bruises around breasts or genitals, unexplained venereal disease or genital infections, unexplained vaginal or anal bleeding, torn, stained, or bloody underclothing. Neglect, the failure to fulfill a caretaking obligation. This can be intentional or unintentional, based on factors such as ignorance or denial that an elderly person needs as much care as she does. And this neglect often happens where the people are in denial. When the elderly has been, with our people living with dementia, when an elderly has been diagnosed, usually the family don't believe that the person is at risk. They might let the older person live alone for days on end. She might burn herself trying to cook. She might sleep with doors unlocked. People may come in and do whatever abuse they can to their older person. Healthcare fraud and abuse. This type of abuse is done by unethical, unscrupulous doctors, nurses, hospital personnel, and other professional care providers against elderly people, such as not providing health care but charging for it, overcharging or double billing for medical care or services, getting kickbacks for referrals to other providers or for prescribing certain drugs, over-medicating or under-medicating, recommending fraudulent remedies for illnesses or other medical conditions, and medical aid fraud. The signs of healthcare fraud could be duplicate billings for the same medical service or device you'll see when the bills arrive at home, evidence of over-medication or under-medication, evidence of inadequate care when bills are paid in full, problems with the care facility, poorly trained, poorly paid, or insufficient staff, crowding, and inadequate responses to questions about care. Then we have our social abuse, which is the forced isolation of the person with dementia, including any other elderly person. I'm just emphasizing on people living with dementia because I work for Alzheimer's South Africa. This could be locking the person away when visitors arrive, refusing to allow the person to attend social functions, refusing to allow them to sit or eat with the family or others, keeping them locked in a room under the pretext of it being for their safety, unusual weight loss, malnutrition, dehydration, untreated physical problems such as bed sores, unsanitary living conditions like dirt, bugs, soil bedding and clothes, smelly when you enter, being left dirty or not bathed, unsuitable clothing or covering for the weather, and unsafe living conditions, no heat or running water, faulty electrical wiring, and other fire hazards. And then other forms of abuse would be self-neglect, the behavior of an older person that threatens his or her own health and or safety due to lack of insight and cognitive changes. Our person living with dementia is no longer able to adequately perform activities of daily living. There's no hygiene, there's no eating, all activities of daily living they can no longer perform on their own. And then there's also the accusation of witchcraft. Usually older women are labeled as witches and being blamed for disasters in the communities they live in or calamities befalling neighbors. But never have I heard an older person who is a man being labeled a witch, even though the behavior is still the same as the ladies with Alzheimer's disease, dementia. And that's very, very unfortunate. We need to protect our older ladies. And then we have the systemic abuse of older person, which is any violation of the rights of the elderly people as a result of the action or lack of appropriate action by government or organizations. So what are the risk factors for Alzheimer's disease? We have risk factors by the caregivers and families, and we have risk factors about by the elderly person themselves. Risk factors are anything that puts your elderly person at risk of abuse. Sometimes it could be that the caregiver is not well trained in caregiving. The caregiver is a substance abuser. The caregiver themselves have depression. The caregiver sometimes they haven't been trained in how to manage and communicate with a person with dementia. And the risk factors could be the older person themselves, because older persons themselves are abusive to the caregiver or the family member. And usually they may be abusive because of the abuse in return. They may be abusive because there's always been an abusive relationship between both the family member giving care and the person living with dementia. And also are people living with dementia also so demanding and ill-behaved the way we perceive them. That also leads to unintentional abuse. So our other risk for a person living with dementia is the results of what's happening in the brain. We say they forget what happened recently. So they may not be able to remember incidents. They may not be able to relate about the abuse, because also the ability to communicate is also, they're also losing that as well. They may not be believed or understood, because we also say that they say things that are not true. Meantime, for them, what they're saying is true. They may enter into agreement without understanding the consequences because of the state of their mind, or they are coerced to enter in those agreements with threats and things like that. They may have unfounded fears of people and situations. Remember that another sign is also hallucinations. They see that things that are not there, they hear things that are not there, and if anything is not familiar to them, then it's a problem and challenge for them. And also they may lack inhibitions. They no longer know what is right and what is wrong, what is embarrassing and not embarrassing. For example, like just stripping or going out of the house naked. To unscrupulous males, that would seem like an invitation for them to be raped. So what should you do? You should report everybody if you suspect that a neighbor of yours is being abused. Then you could report it either openly, if you are brave, or anonymously. You report to the Department of Social Development in your area, or you go to the South African Police Services, or Alzheimer's or dementia associations. You go online, you get the contacts. So the theme for World Elder Abuse Awareness Day this year is access to justice. So by reporting any you do not even need to prove that the abuse is happening. As long as you suspect, you have reasonable doubt to suspect that abuse could be happening, then please raise your voice, report it, as we have already said, because our older people living with dementia and any other frail older person need access to justice, and it is only us who can help them with that. So we say, let's lift up our voices. Let's move from awareness to action through human rights-based approach, and understand and end financial abuse of older persons. It's a human rights issue. The United Nations has what we call the Bill of Rights of Elderly People, And this Bill of Rights says that includes that people with Alzheimer's disease and elderly people have the right to independence, have the right to self-fulfillment, have the right to dignity, have the right to participation, have the right to care. So those are very, very important for us to know. So please, let's go out there, raise our voices to protect our people living with dementia and any other older persons. Because we too are going to grow old. And if we don't fight this now to protect ourselves, it's going to happen to us. Thank you.